I still remember the warmth of the sun filtering through the living room window that afternoon, casting a golden glow over everything. It was a typical Saturday, and Victoria had decided to host a small gathering for some friends. I was in the kitchen, experimenting with a new recipe for herb-crusted salmon, while the tantalizing aroma of fresh rosemary and thyme wafted through the air. I loved these moments, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the feeling of community that surrounded us. It felt like our home was alive, buzzing with the kind of energy that only close friends can bring. Victoria, with her effortless charm, flitted around the room, pouring glasses of crisp white wine and laughing heartily at Jake's jokes. He had a way of lighting up a room with his easygoing personality, and I couldn't help but smile as I watched them together. Their friendship had always felt innocent, filled with shared interests and banter, but that day, something felt different. There was an undercurrent of tension in the air, a chemistry that was almost palpable. As the evening wore on, I noticed how Victoria's laughter lingered a bit longer around Jake, her touch brushing against his arm just a fraction of a second too long. I brushed it off, attributing it to the wine, but a small part of me couldn't shake the feeling that there was more beneath the surface. That evening, we shared a delicious meal, followed by rich chocolate mousse for dessert, and I poured myself a glass of scotch, trying to enjoy the camaraderie. But as the night progressed, my attention began to drift, my senses heightened. I couldn't ignore the way Jake leaned in a little too close when he spoke to Victoria, his voice low and inviting. I caught snippets of their conversation, their shared laughter ringing in my ears like a siren song, drawing me into a world I was no longer a part of. I felt a mix of anger and confusion boiling within me, but I swallowed it down, choosing to focus on the warmth of my drink instead. Later, as I washed the dishes, I glanced over my shoulder and caught a glimpse of Victoria and Jake through the open door leading to the patio. The two of them were standing close, the soft glow of the string lights illuminating their faces, laughter spilling out into the night. I couldn't help but notice how the way Jake looked at her seemed to linger a moment too long, his eyes traveling down to her lips before she turned away, unaware of my watchful gaze. It was then that a wave of something unfamiliar washed over me, jealousy mixed with a strange curiosity. I had never considered myself the type to feel turned on by the thought of my wife with another man, yet here I was, my heart racing, caught between disbelief and an unexpected thrill at the idea of her desire for someone else. That night, as we crawled into bed, I turned my back to Victoria, feigning sleep. But my mind was racing, replaying the images of her laughter with Jake, the way her body had moved so effortlessly close to his. I could hear her soft breaths beside me, but my thoughts were consumed by fantasies I had never dared to entertain before. In the days that followed, I noticed how Victoria seemed more alive than ever. She'd wake up early to jog, her skin glistening with sweat, and she'd come home with a radiant smile. It was a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes when she looked at me, and it filled me with a mix of longing and unease. Our evenings became filled with her chatter about work, and I found myself zoning out, picturing her with Jake, lost in a world of whispered promises and stolen kisses. One Friday night, after a long week at work, I decided to indulge in a craft beer while she prepared dinner. I sat on the patio, the cool breeze brushing against my skin as I sipped the hoppy ale, trying to drown out the noise in my head. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, my mind wandered back to the two of them. I was losing touch with the reality of our life, trapped in this intoxicating blend of jealousy and desire that had begun to consume me. As Victoria joined me outside, the aroma of garlic and olive oil following her, I found myself entranced by the way the fading light played upon her skin, highlighting the curve of her neck and the gentle sway of her hips. I could hardly remember the last time I'd felt that kind of attraction towards her. Maybe it was the idea of her with someone else that sparked something deep within me, or perhaps I was just yearning for the connection we once shared. "Hey, what's on your mind?" she asked, her voice soft and inviting. I could see the warmth in her eyes, but behind it was a hint of something elusive. I wanted to reach out, to pull her close and remind her of the passion we used to have, but the specter of Jake loomed over us, a ghost in our relationship that I could no longer ignore. "Just thinking about dinner," I replied, forcing a smile. "It smells incredible." She laughed, a sound that was both genuine and slightly guarded. Well, it's a new recipe. I hope you like it. As we sat down to eat, the food tasted different, spiced with tension and uncertainty. I watched as she took a sip of her wine, her lips glistening with the liquid, and my mind flickered back to the image of her with Jake. I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives were on the precipice of change, and I was desperate to know just how far that change would go. As we finished dinner, the atmosphere thickened with unspoken words. Victoria's laughter lingered in the air, yet it felt disconnected from me. I could see her fidgeting slightly, her fingers toying with the stem of her wine glass as if she were contemplating a confession. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the whirlpool of emotions swirling inside me: jealousy, confusion, desire. Do you want to watch a movie? I suggested, hoping to ease the tension and draw her back to me. But instead she hesitated, her gaze drifting to the patio door where Jake had once stood, and the spark of longing in her eyes didn't escape me. Actually, I was thinking. She paused, biting her lower lip in that way I found so alluring. Maybe we could go for a walk instead. I need some fresh air. The night was warm, the stars twinkling like diamonds in the vast sky, and as we stepped outside, the quiet of the neighborhood wrapped around us. Our hands brushed as we walked side by side, and I felt an electric current pass between us. It was intoxicating, but also terrifying, as if we were standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering over an abyss. Do you remember our walks when we first started dating? Victoria asked, glancing up at me with a teasing smile. I nodded, recalling the warmth of her hand in mine, the way our fingers intertwined seamlessly. Back then, every touch ignited a spark, a promise of passion that seemed to have dimmed in recent months. Yeah, I replied, forcing a smile. Those were good times. Her laughter floated into the night, but it felt bittersweet, a reminder of what we once had. I used to love how you surprised me with spontaneous adventures. We should do that more often. Spontaneous adventures, huh? I replied, feeling a flicker of the old excitement reignite within me. Like what? Maybe we could sneak away for a weekend. Just the two of us. No friends, no distractions. There was a glint in her eyes, something sultry and daring, and I felt a rush of anticipation. Sounds perfect, I said, my heart racing at the thought of her undivided attention. Where would we go? Victoria stepped closer, her voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. How about that little cabin by the lake? The one we used to visit? The cabin held memories of lazy afternoons spent cuddling, sharing wine by the fireplace, and the heat of her body pressed against mine as we drifted into sleep. I could almost feel that warmth now, but with it came the reminder of Jake's presence looming over us. Yeah, that could work, I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the conflicting emotions surging through me. As we walked, I caught her glancing at me, her expression contemplative. The tension between us crackled like electricity, and I could sense her desire, mingled with something darker, guilt perhaps? It was intoxicating to think that she might still want me, even amidst the chaos that Jake represented. Matthew, she said softly, stopping in her tracks. She turned to face me, her eyes sparkling in the moonlight. I've missed us. I know things have been different lately. The vulnerability in her voice stirred something deep within me, and for a moment, I was lost in the depths of her gaze. I stepped closer, our bodies inches apart, the warmth radiating between us igniting a familiar fire. I've missed us too, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. As if drawn together by an invisible force, I leaned in, capturing her lips with mine in a kiss that felt both electrifying and tentative. Her mouth opened beneath mine, soft and inviting, and a rush of longing surged through me. I wrapped my arms around her waist, pulling her closer, deepening the kiss as the world around us faded away. The taste of her was intoxicating, and I felt a heat pooling low in my stomach, a desperate need awakening inside me. It had been too long since we'd connected like this, and as I felt her hands slide up my arms, her fingers entwining in my hair, the weight of my doubts momentarily lifted. But then, like a shadow creeping back into the light, the thought of Jake intruded on our moment. I pulled away, breathless, searching her eyes for the truth. What about Jake? The name hung heavy between us, a specter either of us could ignore. She hesitated, her gaze dropping to the ground. It's complicated, she murmured, and my heart sank. I didn't plan for it to happen, Matthew. I never wanted to hurt you. My pulse quickened, a mix of anger and desire coursing through me. But you did, I said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. You've let him into our lives. I know, she replied, her voice shaking slightly. But what if I want both of you? The confession hung in the air, both exhilarating and terrifying. For a brief moment, the idea twisted inside me, an unexpected thrill mixed with betrayal. You want both of us? I echoed, a mix of disbelief and intrigue coloring my tone. She stepped closer again, her fingers grazing my cheek as she met my gaze. I don't know, Matthew. I just know that I feel something for you that I can't ignore. The heat of her body against mine ignited a primal desire, and I felt myself drawn back into her orbit, the pull of our connection overpowering the doubts in my mind. Maybe we can figure this out together, I said, my heart racing at the thought of what that would mean. Would I become a willing participant in this tangled web of desire? The idea was both intoxicating and terrifying, but the thought of losing her completely was even more so. Together, she whispered, leaning in to kiss me again, the taste of her lips igniting a passion I thought had been extinguished. In that moment, I made a choice, one that would irrevocably change the course of our lives. As Victoria's lips melded with mine, the world around us fell away, leaving just the two of us wrapped in a cocoon of desire. The kiss deepened, igniting a fire within me that I hadn't felt in months. Her body pressed against mine, soft and inviting, as though she were daring me to step into the unknown. I pulled her closer, feeling the warmth of her body against mine. Every curve, every contour, was etched into my memory. I had almost forgotten how intoxicating she could be, how her touch sent shivers racing down my spine. My hands roamed along her waist, and she responded with a soft moan, her fingers threading through my hair, pulling me in deeper. We stood there, lost in each other, the cool night air swirling around us. My hands slipped beneath the hem of her blouse, brushing against the soft fabric of her skin. The sensation sent waves of heat coursing through me, and I felt an urgency I hadn't felt in far too long. I wanted to lose myself in her, to reclaim every part of her that had felt distant. Matthew, she breathed, her voice a sultry whisper as she pulled back slightly to meet my gaze. The hunger in her eyes mirrored my own, and in that moment, all the doubts and fears faded away. I want you to know how much I need you. Then let's not waste any more time, I replied, my voice rough with desire. I could feel the weight of her confession hanging in the air, but the thought of Jake melted away as my desire for her took over. We had an opportunity to redefine everything, to reclaim what we had lost. With a shared understanding, we turned back toward the house, the urgency of the moment guiding us. The intimacy of our connection pulsated in the air as we stepped inside. The dim light cast long shadows across the room, wrapping us in an atmosphere thick with possibility. As soon as the door clicked shut behind us, I pulled her back into my arms, capturing her lips again with a fervor that surprised even me. The taste of wine lingered on her mouth, intoxicating and sweet, fueling my hunger for her. I pushed her back gently against the wall, the cool surface contrasting with the heat radiating from our bodies. God, I've missed this, I murmured against her lips, my hands exploring her body, feeling the familiar curves that had haunted my dreams. Her breath quickened, and I could sense her desire mirrored in the way she pressed herself against me. Victoria's hands found the hem of her blouse, pulling it over her head and revealing her lace bra, delicate and enticing. The sight of her sent my heart racing, my body responding instinctively to her unveiling. You're beautiful, I said, my voice thick with desire as I trailed kisses down her neck, savoring the warmth of her skin beneath my lips. Show me, she urged, her voice a breathless whisper that ignited something primal within me. There was a boldness in her gaze that dared me to take control, to explore every inch of her body as if we were rediscovering each other for the first time. I guided her toward the living room, the soft glow of the lamp illuminating her curves. I kissed her again, deeper this time, feeling the urgency build between us. I took my time, my hands exploring the smoothness of her skin as I trailed my fingers along her waist, savoring the way she responded to my touch. As I pushed her gently onto the sofa, she fell back, her eyes sparkling with mischief and desire. I took a moment to drink in the sight of her, the way her chest rose and fell with anticipation, the lace of her bra framing her curves perfectly. It was intoxicating. "Matthew," she breathed, a hint of urgency in her tone. "I want you to make me feel alive again." Her words sent a thrill through me, and I leaned down, capturing her lips once more as my hands worked deftly to unclip her bra, revealing her bare skin to me. My mouth moved to her collarbone, trailing kisses lower as I reveled in the softness of her flesh. I could feel her heart racing beneath my touch, and it filled me with a sense of power and urgency. "God, you're exquisite," I murmured against her skin, my lips moving to her breast, savoring the taste of her. Her hands tangled in my hair, urging me closer, and I felt a rush of exhilaration as I lost myself in the moment. Each gasp, each soft moan that escaped her lips ignited a fire within me, pushing me further into this realm of passion. As I continued to explore her, the world outside faded into nothingness. All that mattered was the warmth of her body against mine, the connection we were rekindling, and the shared desire that coursed between us. I wanted to take my time, to savor every moment as I rediscovered the woman I loved. "Let me show you how much you mean to me," I whispered, my breath hot against her skin. I wanted to make this a night she would never forget, a night that would bury the doubts and fears we had been living with. With a renewed sense of purpose, I moved back to her lips, capturing her in a kiss that felt like a promise to reclaim our intimacy, our passion, and our love. In that moment, I knew that whatever lay ahead with Jake, I was ready to fight for us. I would do whatever it took to bring back the spark that had once defined our relationship. As our lips parted, I gazed down at Victoria, the soft glow of the lamp casting a warm light over her skin, making her look ethereal. She was breathtaking, and the fire in her eyes spoke of the longing that mirrored my own. I could see the vulnerability mingled with desire, and it stirred something deep within me, an overwhelming need to protect and cherish her, to drown out the insecurities that had clouded our relationship for so long. "Matthew," she breathed, her voice thick with emotion, pulling me back into the moment. "I need you." That simple request sent a jolt of electricity through me. I leaned in, brushing my lips against hers, tasting the sweetness of her breath. Every touch ignited sparks, and I felt my heart race as I explored her body, my hands gliding over her curves with reverence. I wanted to worship her, to show her just how much she meant to me, to remind her of the passion we had shared before doubt crept into our lives. I kissed my way down her neck, feeling the rapid beat of her pulse beneath my lips. Each kiss ignited a fire in my veins, fueling my desire as I ventured lower. My fingers traced along the waistband of her skirt, teasingly dipping beneath the fabric. I could feel her body arching towards me, desperate for more, and it filled me with an intoxicating sense of power. "Matthew, please," she whispered, her voice a soft plea that sent shivers down my spine. I looked up to meet her gaze, and in her eyes, I saw a mix of trust and hunger that both thrilled and terrified me. I had almost forgotten how her need for me could awaken my own desires. With a slow, deliberate motion, I began to peel away her skirt, savoring every moment as the fabric slid down her legs. The anticipation hung thick in the air, and I was captivated by the sight of her bare skin illuminated in the soft light. My heart raced as I leaned back to admire her, feeling the heat of desire pool low in my stomach. She was stunning, and every inch of her called to me. "Your body is a masterpiece," I murmured, my fingers gliding along her thigh, tracing a path that ignited her skin like fire. She shivered at my touch, and I could see the way her breath quickened, a testament to the effect I had on her. "Show me," she urged again, her voice barely above a whisper. It was an invitation I couldn't resist. I leaned down, kissing her thigh, trailing my lips higher, savoring the softness of her skin, the warmth radiating from her body. Each kiss ignited her senses, and I could feel her legs tremble with anticipation as I ventured closer to where she ached for me most. "Matthew," she breathed, her fingers tangling in my hair, urging me on. The heat radiating from her was palpable, and I felt a primal need surging within me. I wanted to explore every part of her, to lose myself in the rhythm of our bodies entwined. As I continued to kiss and tease, I felt her body respond, arching into me, begging for more. The connection between us was electric, a current of desire that flowed through the very air we breathed. I could sense her yearning, her hunger, and it spurred me on. With one last glance into her eyes, those depths that held so much passion and vulnerability, I dipped my head lower, kissing her soft flesh where she craved me the most. Her body responded instantly, a gasp escaping her lips as I teased and tasted, exploring the depths of her desire. The world outside faded away, leaving just the two of us in this intoxicating moment. Every sound, every sigh, became a part of our dance as I reveled in the way her body reacted to my touch. I wanted to give her everything, to remind her of the passion we shared and the love that still flickered beneath the surface. "Matthew, don't stop," she urged, her voice trembling with need, and I could feel my own desire intensifying in response to her urgency. I lost myself in the rhythm of our bodies, exploring, tasting, and feeling every inch of her as we moved together in a dance of passion. The heat of the moment enveloped us, a cocoon of intimacy that shielded us from everything outside. I was determined to show her that the spark we had was still there, waiting to be ignited. With each kiss, each caress, I felt the barriers between us crumbling, replaced by a raw, visceral connection that left us both breathless. Finally, when I couldn't take it any longer, I positioned myself above her, our bodies aligned perfectly as I met her gaze. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice low and filled with desire. The question hung in the air, but deep down, I knew the answer. We were both ready to dive into this new chapter together. "Yes," she breathed, the fire in her eyes undeniable. "I want you, Matthew. I need you." With that, I closed the distance between us, feeling the heat of her body envelop me as we became one. The world outside ceased to exist, and in that moment, it was just us, lost in each other, our bodies moving together in perfect harmony. Every thrust, every breath, was a reminder of our connection, a bond that had been tested but never broken. As the intensity built, I felt the weight of our shared history, the struggles and the pain, but also the love that had brought us back together. Together, we created a symphony of passion, our bodies entwined as we explored the depths of our desires. In that space, we reclaimed what had once been lost, a promise to each other that we would navigate the complexities ahead, together. And as the night wore on, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them united, our bond stronger than ever. The night unfolded in a haze of passion and connection, a sacred space where nothing else mattered except the two of us. Our bodies moved together in a rhythm that felt instinctual, as if we were rediscovering a dance we had once mastered. The world outside faded into oblivion, leaving just the intoxicating scent of our sweat and the sounds of our breath mingling in the air. As I buried myself deeper inside her, I was struck by the warmth and softness that surrounded me. Every movement elicited soft gasps and moans from her, sounds that resonated in my chest like a sweet melody. I wanted to take my time, to savor every moment, but the urgency of our reconnection pulled us both deeper into the depths of desire. "Matthew," she gasped, her eyes locking onto mine, filled with a mix of ecstasy and something deeper, vulnerability, trust. "Don't stop." Her words ignited something primal within me. I quickened my pace, the heat building between us, each thrust a testament to the passion we were reclaiming. The way she moved beneath me, urging me on, pushed me to the edge of control. I was lost in the depths of her gaze, the way her body responded to mine as if it were made for this moment. "I want to feel you," she whispered, her voice a breathy plea that sent shivers down my spine. In that moment, I wanted to give her everything, to show her that I was here, present, and that this connection was more than just physical. It was a rediscovery of who we were together. With each thrust, I felt us peeling back layers of doubt and pain, exposing the raw intimacy we had long craved. I leaned down, capturing her lips with mine, feeling the warmth of her mouth against my skin. The kiss was filled with a mix of urgency and tenderness, a promise that we were willing to fight for this connection, to explore the depths of our desires without fear. I could feel her body tightening around me, the way she arched her back, urging me deeper, igniting the fire within us both. The air was thick with the scent of passion, the sounds of our bodies colliding echoing softly in the dimly lit room. I was lost in a haze of bliss, every sensation amplified, every touch electrifying. "Matthew," she breathed, her voice tinged with desperation. "I'm so close." The urgency in her voice spurred me on, and I picked up my pace, driven by the need to bring her to that precipice with me. Our bodies moved in perfect sync, a dance of passion that felt both primal and sacred. The world outside faded into nothingness as we spiraled closer to the edge together. "Let go with me," I urged, my voice low and filled with desire. "I want to feel you fall apart around me." With a shuddering breath, I felt her body tense beneath me, her nails digging into my back as the waves of pleasure washed over her. "Oh God, Matthew!" she cried, her voice filled with ecstasy as she let go, surrendering to the sensation that consumed her. The sight of her unraveling beneath me was more than I had hoped for, an affirmation of our connection, a moment of pure intimacy that wrapped around us like a warm blanket. Her body quaked with pleasure, and as I continued to thrust deeper, I could feel the tightening of her walls around me, pulling me closer to the brink. "Together," I groaned, driven by the intensity of the moment, knowing we were both on the precipice of release. The heat coiled in my stomach, a primal urge to find my own climax mingling with the overwhelming pleasure of seeing her in this state of bliss. With one final thrust, I felt myself break, surrendering to the tide of pleasure that surged through me. "Victoria!" I shouted, the sound echoing in the room as I felt our bodies collide, the two of us riding the wave of ecstasy together. In those moments, I felt a sense of liberation, as if all the pain and doubt that had plagued our relationship melted away, replaced by a new sense of clarity. We were entwined, bodies connected in a way that transcended the physical. In that sweet moment of afterglow, I wrapped my arms around her, holding her close as we both caught our breath. "I love you," I whispered, the words pouring out of me with sincerity. The confession hung in the air, a promise to each other that we would navigate the challenges ahead together. "I love you too, Matthew," she replied, her voice soft and filled with warmth. "I've missed us." As we lay there, tangled together on the sofa, I felt a sense of hope blossom within me. This moment was a turning point, a chance to rebuild what we had almost lost. I realized that no matter what challenges lay ahead, no matter how complicated our lives had become, we had each other. And that was a foundation worth fighting for. I could still sense the shadows of doubt lurking at the edges of my mind, but as Victoria curled against me, her warmth radiating against my skin, I knew we were ready to face whatever came our way. Together, we would find a way to navigate the complexities of our lives, reclaiming the passion and intimacy that had once defined our relationship. And as the night wore on, wrapped in each other's arms, I felt a newfound sense of determination to make it work, to keep the fire between us alive. As we lay intertwined on the sofa, the remnants of our passion slowly faded into a comfortable silence, leaving behind a cocoon of warmth and intimacy. The soft glow of the lamp illuminated Victoria's features, casting gentle shadows across her face, and I couldn't help but marvel at the beauty before me. She looked peaceful, a serene expression gracing her features as she nestled closer, her head resting on my chest. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of connection, a bond forged anew in the fires of our shared vulnerability. We had faced the storm, and despite the chaos that had threatened to tear us apart, we had emerged stronger, more united than ever. "Do you think we can really do this?" Victoria asked, breaking the stillness with a softness in her voice that tugged at my heart. I could sense the uncertainty lingering beneath her words, and I knew we both felt the weight of the challenges ahead. "Absolutely," I replied, my tone firm but gentle. "We've come too far to let anything or anyone come between us now. We can navigate this, together." I hoped my words would reassure her, instilling a sense of confidence in both of us. She looked up at me, her eyes searching mine for any hint of doubt. Instead, she found a steady resolve that seemed to pulse with every beat of my heart. "I want this, Matthew. I want us." Her declaration filled me with warmth, and I felt the remnants of fear that had clung to me begin to dissipate. Then that's all that matters, I said, brushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. We'll figure out how to move forward, one step at a time. No secrets, no hiding. Just honesty and love. Victoria nodded, a small smile breaking through the uncertainty that had clouded her features moments earlier. I can do that. I promise to be open with you, even when it's difficult. And I'll do the same, I replied, the sincerity in my voice cutting through the lingering shadows of doubt. We'll face everything together, no matter what. With those words, we sealed our unspoken promise, a commitment to nurture the love we had fought so hard to reclaim. The memories of our struggles would always linger in the background, but now they served as reminders of our resilience, the strength of our connection, and the depth of our love. As the night deepened around us, the world outside continued on, blissfully unaware of the small miracle unfolding within the walls of our home. I held Victoria close, feeling the steady rhythm of her breath against my skin, and I couldn't help but think of the journey that had brought us to this point. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. We would still need to confront the complications of our lives, the shadows that lingered in the corners of our hearts, the ever-present figure of Jake. But for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of clarity. We had a choice, and we had each other. Together, we would redefine what it meant to be married, to be partners, and to be lovers. With a deep breath, I pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, savoring the warmth of our connection. No matter what happens, I want you to know that you're my heart, Victoria. You always have been. Her smile widened, and in that moment I knew we were embarking on a new chapter, one filled with hope, passion, and a fierce commitment to one another. We had faced the storm, and now, as we lay together in the soft glow of the aftermath, I knew we were ready to embrace whatever came next. In that quiet, intimate moment, wrapped in each other's arms, I felt the weight of the past begin to lift, replaced by a sense of possibility. We had weathered the storm, and now, with renewed love and trust, we were ready to face the dawn together, hand in hand, heart to heart.